I think it was 5-6 days, followed by a training following that, changed my life. Completely. I left, it was really the full body energy, he called it, tantric full body energy orgasm. It was really that workshop that did it for me. It was like the icing on the cake. I remember I was watching the demo and I started to cry. I started to bawl just watching the demo. And my body actually, I started to convulse a little bit. And I was like, I remember like it felt so good to cry. And I was also like, what is going on? The truth is you can't move through trauma by just talking. That's just, we know that now. For me, and this is, again, part of my somagetic, it's like somatic and energetic, but for me, there's a deep realization that, and, you could also say science is showing this, and that, the yogis, they've known this forever. I mean, everything is energy. We are all energy.
Hi, and welcome to the first Enlightened DXB podcast. I'm so happy to be here today because I'm here with a new dear friend and a beautiful energy worker and a body worker. Sometimes I'm a bit unsure whether to call him and many of these facilitators out there a healer, but Nathan Marcuzzi is with us today, and welcome.
Thank you. It's honor to be here.
Amazing.
Really happy to be sitting down with you.
Yeah. This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start with 3 breaths.
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
Just
co-regulating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you can tell a lot also about how people breathe too.
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic. Maybe we'll get to that.
But let's talk about that. Let's talk about how important breath is in energy work and in general in the Tantra spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, and even like you said, I think in general, it's like breath is so connected to our emotions. Right. It's the same with how we eat, what we eat, right? And so you can actually tell a lot about someone by the way they're breathing, and you can tell a lot about yourself as well if there begins to be an awareness and a sort of a noticing of your breath. It's like, oh, okay, you know what? I don't really breathe into my abdomen, or I'm really chest breathing, or my breathing is really shallow. Why? And this is why, you go to like a yogic retreat and they're inviting you to breathe in a yogic breath, which is like deep, full, like really expanding the capacity of the lungs. And so by doing these certain techniques, breath techniques, you can also trigger these emotions that are connected to the shallow breathing. So suddenly you start breathing deep. And so suddenly it can start moving the emotions, which is what, comes up in my workshops ultimately.
Yeah.
And that's why the tears come, because you start breathing in a certain way. It's like, ooh, it starts to open up these things.
Yeah. And I experienced that back in May when I got to go to the first workshop with you for 2 days. And you just completed the second one that I've been to, which we brought your work here to Dubai, which has been really beautiful.
Which was very exciting.
And
it was like breaking new ground.
Absolutely. And looking forward to having you back again in the next year. But it comes back to this point about breath being, the basis of the start of every single day of your workshop is this shamanic breath work. And I want to dive in a little bit further into these different emotions that come up with different types of breathing, if you can provide a little bit of color on that. But perhaps before we dive right into that, we can also, maybe you can tell us in your own words what an energy worker or a body worker does, or what you do.
Yeah. It's interesting what's alive for me here in this moment, and I'm all about that, just channeling what's most alive. I actually recently saw this video of I won't name him, of someone on Instagram talking about who's really doing the healing, or what's really happening in the body when you're in a session. And although I've always been clear what my role as a facilitator, practitioner,
Healer.
Somewhat healer.
Yeah, let's talk about this, because it's such a charged word.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
It's a great question, because I will often say to clients, your experience today, or people in a workshop, your experience today says a lot more about you than it does me. And so it actually taps into that, the question of, being called a healer or not. Yes, I can facilitate healing, but who's really doing the healing? And I think, if I wanted to get a bit edgy here, I would probably argue that a facilitator who comes in and says, I heal you, is coming from a place of ego. Okay, yes, I can facilitate your healing. I can hold space for you in a really beautiful, profound way. I can be very sensitive as myself. I can really sense and feel energies. And so I can work with those energies.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that person lying down has to be involved, is involved, and impossible not to be involved, right? So the more you can bring that presence and awareness to them and invite them to be in presence and awareness and really embodied in their body, the deeper their experience is going to go. So that's why I think, at least for myself, I don't label myself as a healer. And in fact, people ask, well, what do you do? And it's like, well, I just bring Somagetic, my work's name, the name that I chose, which is somatic and energetic put together. I just bring that to you, and I hold that space, and you could say, channel that, but really it's the person doing the healing.
Yeah, I love that. And it could apply even to energy worker or body worker. You are working with these things, but it's actually the energy that is what carries the healing properties, or the body itself that actually has to go through the work.
Absolutely. I mean, I think for me, and this is, again, part of my Somagetic, it's like somatic and energetic, but for me, there's a deep realization that, and, you could also say science is showing this, and that, the yogis, they've known this forever. I mean, everything is energy. We are all energy. I mean, then, the new science now knows that there's actually no such thing as matter. I forget, there's here we have matter, and we have, everything is energy now. We are understanding that more and more. And so even when I'm working with someone on a body level, I'm always aware that it's energetic. I'm ultimately working with the energy body. We see this. So we're like, oh, okay, this is it. This is where the healing starts. But actually, there's all of this out here. And what is this? This is the aura, the energy body, the different layers of things that we don't see. And this is where so much is actually stored. And what's happening out here, for me, is actually, this is a reflection. This is a result of what's happening out here, or up here, thought-wise, mentally. And then this is just the outcome of that.
So tell me a little bit, actually, because as you were talking, I was
Yeah.
like, actually, I'm not sure if I really understand the nuanced difference between energy work or energetics and somatic. I feel like they're always sort of combined. What is somatic
Well, somatic means of the body,
of the body?
basically.
So
It's
it's
like
energy
the
of the body.
is the short, not,
Okay.
definition. So anything to do with being of the body or in the body.
Okay.
Now, I think you see, maybe there's that assumption because I think nowadays there is a lot of talk of somatic work. And I think a lot of facilitators, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of facilitators understand the energetic side and the importance of energy. And so, yeah, I think you would be if you were a somatic worker and didn't understand or didn't have some sort of sense or understanding of energy and the way energy moves in the body and how it, the importance of it, I think that would be, there'd be something missing in that session. A parallel example would be talk therapy, right? I mean, our parents grew up, our grandparents, grew up in this talk therapy world where it's like you go to therapy. Therapy was you sit here and how are you feeling? And this is how I'm feeling. And this is what happened. And this is this. And the story and story and story and story. Talk. What we're seeing now, and it's being studied, very deeply by people like Gabor Mate, who's, could be described as a trauma specialist. We're seeing the importance of bringing in the body into that session. Right? You can sit there and talk, but if you're not making the connection to how you're feeling in the body, how you're breathing, what's happening in the body, then there's this sort of disconnect. There's this disassociation. So we're seeing now a lot of therapists, even who are doing sort of traditional therapy, understanding that now and incorporating a lot of, even if it's simple techniques like doing eye movements.
Rapid eye movement,
Yeah,
desensitization.
Yeah. More and more therapists, I think, are recognizing that, especially when dealing with trauma. In fact, the truth is you can't move through trauma by just talking. That's just, we know that now.
And sometimes I think it can be re-traumatizing because you're just reliving it.
It can be, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Gabor Mate talks about that. Like if you start to talk about it, then it starts to rise. And if you're unable to create that sense of safety through your breath, through feeling, it takes you back to the trauma. And then you spin in the trauma
Strengthens
again.
those pathways.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That strengthens, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So we've got somagetic, somatic,
yeah.
and energetics
Yes,
together.
put together, yeah.
And so it's really this embodied practice with energy.
Yeah.
Talk about a little bit about weaving those two things
yeah,
together.
so I think now this is the next step is for me, how I see it in my world is, okay, we had talk therapy, great. And now we have somatics. Now we have an understanding that we have to breathe and make sound and connect with our body as we talk about our trauma, for example. For me, that the next step is understanding the energy body in that. What's going on in the energy body when we sit here and talk, and when I do eye movements, or when I, et cetera, whatever I'm doing, what's happening in the energy body, and how can we also work with the energy body in a way that the physical body can also respond? Because I can work on someone energetically, and they might feel it in their physical body. So for me, it's like either a next step or an addition to working with the body. And, we started with talking about breath. And so breath is such a great way as well. I mean, you hear it again in most therapies now. They're using breath to some degree or another to keep yourself in the body, to release. The breath is also very connected to the nervous system, the parasympathetic, the sympathetic, the vagal tone, like your vagus nerve as well. That's a whole, literally we could, talk about on that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go too deeply into that, but yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there.
Yeah. Beautiful. I'm curious how, I know I've heard little bits and pieces of this over the few years that I've known you, but I'm curious in this context, how your journey has been. Did it start with traditional talk therapy? Or I know most of us got into embodiment practices through yoga.
Yeah.
And then, your discovery of energetics and would really love that journey.
As with anything, it's a journey, right? It wasn't like one starting point. Reminds me just, of like people, you get these musicians, for example, as a parallel example where, suddenly you hear about this new song and you think, oh, wow, this new artist. And then you start doing the research and you realize, well, they've actually been playing for years and years and have actually 2 previous albums. And, but finally it's come to that point. So in a way that was life for me, is I started quite young, at the age of, I would say 14. I stepped into theater. It was my way of, expression and music as well, speaking of music. And I was a musician for many years. And that was my way of expression, my way to work with frequency, ultimately. I still work with frequency, but just in a different way. And so my theater teacher in high school when I was 14 was a yogi and a meditator. And so at the beginning of classes, he'd start with, short yogic practices. Each day there was a sort of different practice he would do. And so this really started things for me. And so it was through high school, just very lightly, some light meditation, some light yoga. I kind of took it home, started doing it there a bit. My dad was always a very philosophical man. He was reading, spiritual books, books like speakers like J. Krishnamurti. I don't know if you've heard of him, and so I would be reading these books as well. And then when I was after high school in my kind of early 20s, I went to Thailand. And I did, I was with a partner at the time, and her and I did a yoga course, a 1-week yoga course. And then I followed that by getting my Reiki 1. So I think I was 22 years old. And I got my Reiki level 1, got into yoga. And then the year following, I got my Reiki level 2. I went back and did another yoga course. And then I basically did those practices, meditation, yoga, Reiki, just on a personal level for quite some years, from, let's say 2000, I think 2003 to 2015, let's say 2003 to 2015, I was doing those practices. And then in 2015, I felt like something needed to move. I felt like there was this stagnancy in my life, in my energy.
Even though you were living the most idyllic life in Hawaii, meditating
every
day.
It. Yeah, you know the story. I was living a beautiful life in Hawaii. I was volunteering on an organic farm, working on an organic farm, if you will, and getting up every morning, doing yoga, meditation, having a green juice, going to my garden, work. It was a beautiful life.
What everyone's dreaming of.
Right,
in Dubai, right?
What everyone's dreaming of, pretty much. It was a very healing, beautiful time. But at the end of that kind of period, I was just like, I always remember hearing there's a spiritual speaker, Matt Kahn. I think he's based out of Hawaii. And he had this talk on YouTube that I watched. And this was a few years after I left Hawaii, or a year or something. And he spoke of the idea of stagnancy, moving energy. And he made an example of, I forget what it was, like meditation or yoga. And he said, every morning if you wake up and do an hour of yoga, an hour of meditation like clockwork, and every morning you do the same thing, the same time, the same routine, he said, that's stagnant. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Because you think because you're doing yoga and meditation that it's okay, like it's fine, like it's good. But with anything can get in this rut, in this stagnancy. And the one thing that I've noticed about yoga and meditation, I love it. And I think it's very powerful and a great tool. But it can't be the only tool, because the one thing, generally speaking, most of the lineages, if you will, are very controlled. Very like breathe in this way and through the out in this position. Some of the yoga is like, no, not like that, like really fine tuned, and it's so controlled. And what I also found is that there wasn't a whole lot of room for emotion, for like, I remember actually this was in Thailand with my teachers who I love. And I remember in speaking, we started with this breath, right? And I did, their process in their routine is in through the nose, out through the nose, really, And I did that once. I was like, and he like corrected me. And he did it innocent, like it wasn't, and I get it, I understood it. But in hindsight, I recognize that there's just not room for like, I can't move around so much right now. I don't want to, but like, these, what we're seeing now, like the Osho style, like dynamic meditation, like moving, screaming, like letting the energy move in not just this controlled fashion. So going back to my story, I was living in this controlled way, unknowingly. It was beautiful, but it was so like, and so my body, my system was like, you need to like feel and move and like express and connect with your your healthy anger and your healthy masculine. And again, these are all, it's what I understand now. Back then I didn't have these names, I didn't have these understandings, but I knew something needed to move. And so I kind of just took a leap of faith, if you will. And this friend had mentioned this place in Sweden. It's a retreat center called Ecstatic. And they every year, have you been?
No, but I've heard really beautiful things about it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. And every year they do a bunch of festivals. And one of their festivals is Tantra Festival. And I remember this woman telling me about it. And long story short, I had some plans. They kind of fell through, and I was like, okay, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I was like, what is it about that place that my friend mentioned? I wrote her. I was like, what was the name of it? She wrote it to me. I looked it up. In 10 days' time, there was a Tantra festival happening. And I was like, yep, that's where I'm going.
Subscribed.
I knew nothing of Tantra. I didn't really know what I was getting into.
You didn't have any preconceptions even?
Well, yes. Limited ones.
Yeah.
That, it was sexual.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people still have. Like
they have a bit of a distorted
view. And again, we could actually sit here and talk about Tantra, the lineages, the misconceptions, the evolution it's taken.
Yeah.
That's a big topic. We won't go there right now. But I didn't know what I was getting into. That was the main point. And it was there that really, yes, I came into de-armouring. I came into what's called full body energy orgasm, or what I call ecstatic experience. And introduced to breathwork, different styles of, the kneel breathwork, in and out of the mouth style of breath. And it changed that. I think it was 5-6 days, followed by a training following that. changed my life. Completely. I left, it was really the full body energy, he called it, tantric full body energy orgasm. It was really that workshop that did it for me. It was like the icing on the cake. I remember I was watching the demo and I started to cry. I started to bawl just watching the demo. And my body actually, I started to convulse a little bit. And I was like, I remember like it felt so good to cry. And I was also like, what is going on?
And at this time, were you someone who you would consider like freely open to being emotional with yourself, like to sit in those emotions with yourself and with others? Or is that a very different Nathan that I'm sitting in front of now than before?
Well, certainly, I think a very different Nathan.
Yeah.
I think to some degree there was an openness there. But when I look back now, there was certainly... just from my family origin, upbringing, conditions, there wasn't as much as there is now.
Yeah. So
there was room for more.
It was a dam breaking for you, that instance.
I think so. I think that's a great way to put it. Like I felt like a dam broke, something opened. And then right after the demo, we partnered up and had the experience, and I had the most profound, full body energy orgasm. That's the things I should put in quote.
Yeah.
That I had, and it was so cosmic and it was so healing. And I left there. Yeah, I was like, what just happened? Like, wow. I left so inspired, and actually a little angry too, because I'm like, I'm 30, I think I was 35. Like, I'm 35. Why am I finding out at 35 that I can have something called a full body energy orgasm that feels freaking amazing?
Yeah.
Why?
A third
Really?
Of our
like,
lives.
there's nothing.
Yeah.
I think people can look at it and go, oh, that's fake. And, I've actually turned off comments on my YouTube for that reason, because I know there'll be a lot of people going, oh, that's crap, bullshit. But when you experience it, and just that's why I don't also call it full body energy orgasm, call it ecstatic experience. When you experience it, it is profound, and it's accessible for us all, and it's healing, and it's taking things really to a new level. Actually, it reminds me, I just saw this podcast, or I think it was a podcast or something, this short clip on Instagram maybe. And it was of some guy, healer. I don't know what he was actually. I think he channeled from other beings, other planets, something like that. He was like,
okay.
I don't know if you've heard of people like this who channel.
Like extraterrestrials.
Yeah, not in an alien way, but like other beings, other realms. Okay. There's what's her name? I forget. There's anyway, I won't remember. Anyway, someone asked him something about like, how do you have sex, or how do you experience lovemaking, or something like that. Again, I'm really paraphrasing here, but the essence was, his answer was, well, they do it differently. The nutshell answer was, they do it energetically. There was this energy play between them. And again, whether you want to go there and believe that or feel, that's besides the point. The main point for me is it reminds us of who we are and our potential. That's what this ecstatic experience does for me. And I think for a lot of other people, it's like, it reminds us our power, our potential, and that we don't need someone else to have this beautiful, healing, profound experience.
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry, I just kind of, sometimes I get taken away there.
Hearing you speak about that really makes me reflect on my sort of journey with energetics and Tantra and all of this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it has been a profoundly personal experience. And it has been really about me tuning into myself and uncovering that. And even on let's talk about pleasure, because this is when you're talking about a full body, energetic, ecstatic experience, quote, orgasm. Yeah, it's really something that you have to give yourself. It's not something that you can ask someone to provide for you. And I think your healing spaces really provide that as well. This magnifying glass on what are the blockages within us that stop us from feeling full joy.
Love that you brought that in.
And I have to say, the last 2 years, my mantra has been more ease, more joy, more light. And actually, I think it's really hard. And I think Brene Brown talks about this too, of the other shoe dropping, waiting for the other shoe to drop. A lot of us protect ourselves by not fully feeling joy.
Yes.
And there's a lot of conversations out there, and I would agree with, that say that joy is actually the hardest emotion to feel fully, to allow to wash over you fully. And I'm curious, and I know we've done some energy work together. There's been a lot of anger that's come up for me, and then a lot of sadness under that. They're usually quite coupled. I'm curious, how you find this journey. And I'm also really curious, did you actually experience joy in your first ecstatic experience? Were you just that enlightened?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, I feel like joy doesn't even sum it up fully. I mean, it was beyond the words. It was so pleasurable. But yes, I'm glad you brought that in. I mean, so there's two pieces in that. What keeps us from this experience? And also let's start with that. What keeps us from this experience?
That's huge.
I think, I talk about this a lot in my workshops, and I use these words a lot: allowing, surrender, trust. These are the things we really need to allow joy to wash over us.
It's funny because those words bring me peace and calm now hearing them. But if we put them in context of the culture we live in today, which is all about optimization, productivity, basically go put your armor on and go out with a sword and conquer the world.
Yeah.
Surrender is almost a triggering word. Allowing, like, I will not allow it. It's a stance. It's like a boundary.
Yeah.
And it's all of these things, instead of it being something that we can ease into, we've actually been trained to armor up against them, which is telling me in this moment, we've been trained our whole lives to push away joy.
Yeah. You brought up Brene Brown, the power of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Let's replace the word vulnerability, the power of surrender, the power of allowing, the power of trust, right? It's from that place that we can experience this beautiful, healing, deep, profound pleasure and healing experience. And yes, you brought up a great point. And I actually talk about this a lot in my workshops, because the reality is, you can go onto my website and go to my Ecstatic experience page and see the video of, these women having these profound energetic orgasms and think, yeah, great. All right. But the truth is, you get 20 people in a workshop. I mean, the numbers will vary, but at least, I'll say safely, at least half of those people are not going to experience a full body energy orgasm like you see on the video. Why? Because what you brought up, we live in a world that doesn't that we're stressed out. We're in our sympathetic nervous system most of our time. Our sympathetic nervous system is on. We're fight, flight, like so much coming at us.
Yeah.
You need to go, go, go. You no, don't allow, don't stop, don't surrender, whatever the story is, right? This suppresses us. This suppresses that energy. And of course, then there's the topic of trauma, right? If there's a serious trauma in one's experience, one's past experience, that is also going to hinder this life force, this joy, this pleasure moving through us, because ultimately there's the I don't feel safe. Usually when there's a trauma, there's, it's always being brought forward to this present moment, and the nervous system is always thinking, I'm not safe. Very subconscious, right? Someone's going to come in the room and beat me or whatever the trauma there is, right? And it's very subconscious. So if these traumas or these conditions or beliefs of, yes, I can't allow, it's not strong, or to allow, or whatever the story, this blocks this experience. So my workshop is all about that. Come in and let's examine that. And yes, you may not have a full body energy orgasm right away. You may feel a little something, but that's the beginning. That's the beginning of deconstructing all of this, all of these stories, moving through your trauma, recognizing that here and now, you are safe. In this room, here and now, bring awareness to this safety. Like right here and now, there's no threat. Right? But there's a part of our nervous system, depending what we've experienced, that's always a bit on, always thinking, is someone going to come in the door? So how deeply relaxed can we be? How deeply surrendered can we be? And for many of us, that's a process, a work in progress, if you will. And for me, that's the healing journey. That's the healing path.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, because it reminds me, like, you start in your workshops like this, and a lot of Tantra festivals, ecstatic dance you can go to, and you can just see it in how hard it is for people to dance in the way that their body wants to move, not in the way that they saw in a movie that we're supposed to dance, but like literally how is, and then to see someone fully embodied and ecstatic dancing, however crazy that might look, you can see those people, and there's something yearning in all of us to just be like, oh, I just want to let go like that. I just want to surrender fully like that.
Absolutely.
And it's the same with breath. Like you said, I've had that happen in yoga classes too. On some days when I'm super stressed and I'm just like, and then some yoga teachers like, people are heavily breathing today.
We're not used to that.
And we're not. And some people will actually be upset by it. Like, someone is breathing really hard today.
Or that's like, a bit. Yeah,
so what?
People I have friends sometimes that I don't even notice. I do it a lot now, like, or something like, and you sigh a lot, or you make a lot of sound. I'm like, oh, yeah. Imagine being on a bus, right? And just like sitting next to someone. I mean, I wouldn't mind, but for most people, I think if you were sitting next to someone on a bus and they went, you'd probably be like, what are you doing? Like, do that at home, or there's a but it's such a, again, we could talk. It's like, even now, just doing that, sitting here a bit with this mic, and I can feel this sort of like, I kind of want to move around and move some energy. And even just taking that breath and making that sound, like I can feel the nervous system just calm a little bit. Yeah, it's really nice.
So you skipped over your first ecstatic experience. Was it like you fully just were in this open state, and you reached the pinnacle of all joy flowing through you? And can you express? Can you put color on what that felt like for you? I know it was life-changing.
Yeah. So I guess I can see why it's called orgasm. Because how I would describe it if it's orgasmic or, it's because we should actually get to that point. What else can come up?
Yeah.
Let's remember that. But if it's orgasmic in nature, it literally does feel, for me, it feels like I would have a, genital-based orgasm, but all over my body, everywhere, in every cell, like my hands, like the fingertip, like I've had, you can have an experience of what's called like a heartgasm. Or I remember years ago in Australia, I gave a session to a gentleman, and he said he had an eye-gasm. And I remember in the session, he was kind of sitting there, and his eye was kind of doing this like weird, and all sorts of things happen in sessions. So but after, he's like, I swear to God, I had an eye-gasm. And,
I love it.
And I've gone
we should have orgasms with anything we can have orgasms
yes,
with. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I've gone into orgasmic states by when I've been like activated, and by like a friend like doing this to me, just rubbing my end of my finger and just like my whole body feeling it. And so that's the best way I could describe it, is imagine that pleasure that you feel. I know it's different between, if you have
male body or female body. Yeah.
Thank you, to put it simply.
Yeah.
That may cause issue with some people, but anyway, if it's experienced slightly different, but if you can imagine that feeling expanded all over your body.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And do you get goosebumps everywhere?
I don't know if I got goosebumps. I wouldn't say I get goosebumps, but it's just, like even now actually talking about it.
You can almost feel it.
It's this sense of like, as you, I don't know, like, sticking your finger into, I don't know what that's like. I've never done that to a plug outlet or something, but
it's crazy.
Yeah. So but on a more subtle level, and spread out, all over. It's not so deep, but it's like, whoa, like it just.
Yeah, I can feel it. Actually, I can feel that transmission just from you explaining it. So let's go to what else it can be.
Yeah.
Because I know with my several encounters where I've had the pleasure of having private sessions with you, for me, it's a lot of convulsing, and it feels like a lot of blockages. And there's like a undercurrent of rage.
Love it. Yes.
And like a lot of like really primal energy.
Yeah.
And I do find in a lot of shamanic transformative spaces, that's the energy of which that comes out first. And then underneath all that is a well of sadness. And so there's tears. And then sometimes that can go further and further and further. But yeah, I'm curious
so much
what
there.
else can come up? What's most common? And yeah, if you can talk through those layers and that journey, that would be really beautiful. And feel free to use me as an example.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what can come up? All sorts of things. And I'll use myself as an example. My first experience in full body energy orgasm was orgasmic in nature. It was so beautiful. I felt like I was having an orgasm all over my body. A few days later, a friend facilitated. It was also new to her, and she facilitated with me. I was receiving, if you will. And it was a completely different experience. There was points of pleasure and kind of orgasmic feeling, but there was also tears. I remember laughing, like uncontrollable gut laughter, like the deepest laugh I had done in years and years and years. I remember getting visions, flashback of like my family, of certain people, images, feeling their emotions. Like it was really all over the place. And so, yeah, what can come up? Anger, frustration, rage, sadness. And the beauty thing too is, well, that sounded so Canadian, the beauty thing.
The beauty of it.
The beautiful thing. A Canadian by birth.
In Dubai.
Two Canadians. How about that, eh?
How
Pretty
about
good.
that?
The beautiful thing is that it can really shift from 1 second to the next.
Yeah.
I've seen people be in like ultimate orgasmic pleasure, and then whoosh, tears and sadness and sorrow and grief. It's such a fine line between the two.
And it's so beautiful.
So
I think that's one of the most beautiful things about all of this work. Something that stood out to me in the last few months has been this beautiful place where you can hold what seem to be contradictory emotions almost in the same breath. And it's just all there.
It's all there.
And it's work like this that can really bring presence to just seeing what is. And if you are still enough with it, if you are present enough with it, it's like everything is there. It's not just sadness, but it's anger, it's happiness, it's joy, it's pleasure, it's all of the things.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen all sorts of things happen. You know, you asked me what are common. I'd say most common, either you're feeling pleasure or there's often a lot of anger or frustration or, a lot of like disconnect from power, and reclaiming that power can come up as well. People struggling as well to surrender to the pleasure, and that there's this. But again, sometimes it's, and this is how I often describe in the workshop, just to close, is, we're all capable of a full body energy orgasm, if you want to call it that, ecstatic experience, whatever. But there are things in the way, as we kind of touched upon earlier. And what we need to do, I mean, we don't need to do anything, if you're invited to do, is feel what's there. Just be present with what's there. And if it's anger, know that underneath that anger is an amazing, pleasurable experience, is an amazing full body energy orgasm. Right? So, but we don't necessarily want to feel that per se. We don't want to feel the sadness and sorrow. We want to have, a great full body energy orgasm, but what we don't realize is that it's that sorrow that we're not expressing, that anger that we're not expressing, that whatever it is that's not being expressed, that needs to be expressed sometimes before or in coordination with that pleasure state, that joy state.
I love that.
Yeah.
Nathan, we could talk about this for
We
hours.
could. I'm like, we could keep going.
And maybe we might.
Yeah.
Let's do something again soon.
I would love to.
Where can people find you?
Somagetic.com.
Somagetic.com.
Easy. Yeah, or at Somagetic on Instagram. Somagetic.
Awesome.
Somagetic.
And we'll share that in the show notes.
Thank you.
And it's so lovely to have you here.
It's lovely to be here in your warm living room.
And we're looking forward to having you bring your work again here in 2024.
Thank you.
And help enlighten our beautiful communities here in Dubai.
I'm looking forward to coming back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.